Howdy, Archery fans. Dennis here. It's another week, and I'm out hunting again in Sam Houston Forest. Um, in a different area. I'm in an area that I used to hunt. Um, it's an area of the National Forest that is accessible through a residential neighborhood, and I used to have a permission from one of the landowners to go through his yard to get in here, and he sold his house and moved away, and the person that bought the house didn't want to give permission. But I recently acquired permission from another landowner, and so I'm back in here. This is it's an area where there's a corner of of this huntable lot, or section of the forest. Comes to like a corner, but it's kind of a pointed corner. Then on the north side, it's got houses, and then on the east side, it's got houses. But like I said, at the northeast corner, it's not a right angle. It's a sharper angle. So there's like a little peninsula that sticks out into the neighborhood, and there's an open lot right in that corner where they have power lines coming through, and the deer use that as an easy access into the forest and then back into the neighborhood, because the deer spend a lot of time in the yards of the houses around here, eating their plants and whatnot, and then they come back in the forest. I guess in the evening, or at various times. But that makes a very a nice funnel area where there's a pretty high concentration of deer traffic going into that corner, that little peninsula. So, I mean, I've known about this before, and tried to hunt over this area in the past, and done pretty well. So this morning, I got in here a little after dark. Since it was the first time coming through this particular way, I didn't want to be stumbling in the dark too much, so I started out when it was still dark, but by the time I got into where I picked out my tree, it was starting to get light. And I've been in the tree, set up for a couple hours, and today I'm using a climber stand. I didn't bring my hang-on stand with the climber sticks like I did last time. Let's see, this is just it's a two-piece climber stand. It's very comfortable. You can adjust the seat and the stand, height you want, separate them however far you want, whatever's comfortable. It's not a set distance like it is with a hang-on stand. And as long as you have a straight, climbable tree, which there's plenty of pine trees around here that are generally pretty straight, then it's my preferred method. My preferred stand really is the climber. But anyways, So I was in here for a couple hours, maybe say around 9 o'clock or so. Um, didn't have my phone with me. I had to go back to the car to get it, so that's why I don't know the exact time. But maybe around 9 o'clock, I had a doe walk up and basically walk right to my tree. And one of the interesting things about that is that I had peed, that's right, urinated out of my tree stand onto the ground below my stand. And maybe an hour later is when the deer walked up and basically walked right over the area where I had peed and was not alerted, did not seem to notice. So that kind of tells me something. This has actually been a little bit of a debate amongst tree stand hunters. Should you or should you not pee out of your tree stand? Because deer who can detect, such minute differences in scent, that we use doe with estrus secretions to attract bucks when it's during the rut, but just straight doe urine when it's not the rut. And you'd think they'd know the difference between human urine, and we also use buck urine to attract bucks that are looking to protect their territory. So anyways, that doe walked right over the area where I had peed from up here and did not even react at all. Just walked right over it. So later on, she did react a little to when I tried to slowly stand up. I made a little bit of noise and she spooked. And she started looking up right at me. I'm in a pine tree above the leaves that are nearby. So I kind of stick out like a sore thumb. So she was looking right at me like, what's that big green and orange thing up there hanging out, off the side of that tree? But I didn't move, so she'd look at me for a while and then go back to grazing. And she did that 3 or 4 times and never really spooked or took off. I finally did pick up my bow just to see if I would be able to draw on her. I couldn't shoot her because I don't have a doe tag, or what they call an antlerless deer tag, because they have a lottery system, and this year I did not draw one, even though I applied. So I'm waiting for Mr. Buck, but I always like to use those encounters with even if you can't shoot the deer, you try to learn something from the encounter, see what kind of movement or see what kind of noise you can get away with, and try moving quietly, and, practice, standing up to take a shot, that sort of thing. You try to wait until they're turned away from you before you move, because they pick up movement very, very well. She was turned away from me at one point when I moved just a slight amount, and she caught it out of her peripheral vision and looked right up at me. Of course, I froze, and she looked at me for a few seconds and then went back. But you try to learn what you can from every encounter. So So I just wanted to share that. One about using a natural funnel, an area that that because of the terrain, maybe there's some thick tree cover on one side and maybe the hill on the other. There's all different types of natural funnels. Just an open area between two heavily wooded forests can be a funnel. A field, or even a small thin wooded area sticking out into a field can be a funnel because the deer will use the wooded area for cover. So you try to find these natural funnels where deer are forced into a narrow area, and then it gives you a higher percentage, higher chance of being within bow range of a deer. So that's what I'm doing here today. And the other thing is the question of, should you pee out of your tree stand? And I mean, I've I've been peeing out of my tree stand for years, anyways. But at one time I toyed with the idea and even experimented with collecting it in a bottle and then dumping it out after. But I don't think it's necessary after today's encounter. It kind of really verified that in my mind. So that's all I've got. Thanks for watching. Dennis out.